Welcome back to the series where I take you guys along the process of creating my own indie game called Windshire. A little over 2 years ago, I decided to put myself through the most torturous pain anyone can imagine, which is game development. Now for the newcomers here, Windshire is an action-adventure RPG game that I have been developing since I was a freshman in high school. It's almost unrecognizable today, but the roots still shine through. A few months have passed since the latest devlog, and the game has gone through a huge reset. But before we get into that, let's rewind to the beginning of 2021. This was an awkward stage for me because we were already a year into development and it felt like it was going nowhere. With the constant self-doubt of the direction of my game and wondering if it would be able to compete, I needed to make sure my game stood out. Taking a lot of inspiration from Breath of the Wild, I decided to double down on this relatively new idea of a systemic world. If you don't know what a systemic game is, look no further than the inspiration. Everything in Breath of the Wild flows together. An example of this is if it's raining and you try to shoot a flaming arrow, the arrow will fizz out. This gave the world a sense of grounded reality and made the world feel connected. Taking this idea, I started to implement interactions between the systems. Of course, the first interaction I wanted to implement was the ability to blow up barrels because everybody was thinking that. I followed this up by implementing buffs and debuffs so the player would be able to catch on fire, freeze, and other effects such as those. Anyways, while I developed this hook, my team worked on giving the game a purpose by implementing an objective system. These systems actually gave the player a goal and started to slowly feel like an actual game. But doubts that the game actually look unique started to creep in, so I drowned them out by slamming the game with the press these checkboxes until the game looked pretty and completely overhauling all the character models. And then after all of that, it went dark. So I lost my motivation for game design and game development entirely. The more I didn't work on my game, the more demotivated I got because I never saw progress on Windshire. And that was because of me. So it was a rinse and repeat cycle of not wanting to work on the game because I didn't work on my game, if that makes any sense. I decided to take a step back from programming because life got busy and I found my passion in videography and photography, but I still had that fire inside of me that wanted to do game dev, wanted to do computer science and get that stuff done. So as the New Year's rolled around, I got together with my team and we discussed what direction we wanted to take Windshire and how we were going to get it done and released. So with this burning urge to get Windshire in a functioning state, I dived right in to finish what I started. My first task was to get the movement to feel fluid. It's the main way players interact with the game, so I wanted to make sure it felt like you were actually running around in the game. I learned of this up and coming system of handling movement, which was called motion matching. The system is used by huge AAA developers such as Ubisoft to make movement feel as natural as possible. The idea is that instead of telling an on-off type of system to either run or walk, we take the player's input and generate a future trajectory based on that input. Then we just look through all the animations we sampled and figure out which one looks the most natural to play at this certain point in time, and then we just play it. Now this system is extremely difficult to properly execute and takes a lot of tweaking, but if you're interested in learning more, I'll link a GDD talk over this idea. Now since I'm not working on a walking simulator, my team started to implement an overhauled inventory system as well as a lot of models and animations to support these new features. Dennis focused on implementing an inventory system that'll be able to accommodate some new ideas we have for Windshire, while our animator and modeler focused on creating new tool models and animations that'll be used for an up and coming feature. But since this is still very early, I wanted to keep some things under wraps until we actually get them implemented, and with those features slowly coming together, my next step is to get Windshire caught up to where it was a few months ago. Taking this 5-month break from development really put me behind where I wanted to be. With it being already February, I want to have the vertical slice of Windshire complete, so I need to make sure that every day I do something that pushes the game further along. With movement and the inventory getting close to being complete, there's still a huge feature missing: the AI. Looking back, AI has been one of the most difficult things to get right. If the enemies feel boring or lackluster, the player will get bored quickly. I wanted to make sure that not only does the AI feel fun to fight, but also that the AI has a place in the world. A lot of games just simply get the enemies to wander around the camp and do nothing other than fight the player, but the orcs are more than just enemies. They are their own civilization. They inhabit the world just like the humans. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, the first step is to bring them to life. I had a decision in front of me. I either bless them with the same motion matching system that the player uses or give them the basic state machine for animations. Both have their ups and downs. On one hand, motion matching makes animations feel fluid and make them feel natural, while at the same time limiting which animations I can use. While on the other hand, the state machine approach would allow us to mix and match animations, but would also make the AI feel jittery and not fluid. Weighing my options, I decided to bite the bullet and use the motion matching for both the player and the AI. I wanted the characters in Windshire to feel AAA. I wanted them to feel a part of this world. This might bite me back in development later, but I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. The next step was to get the AI to actually move towards the player. There are a few moving parts I need to consider. First off, I need to pass in where I want the AI to go in our pathfinding solution. After it calculates the best path, I pass that into the motion matching system in order to calculate the proper trajectory so we can get the correct animations. And after all of that, it was as simple as letting the systems work together to move the AI to where it needs to go. With this working, I'm not even close to being done with the AI, but for today, I think that's gonna have to do.